2012. What a great year. The first Black president, the Avengers came out, and probably one of the best eras for new songs to come out. And of course, the 2012 NBA draft. With teams drafting new players left and right and lives being changed right in front of our eyes, I can tell you that nobody that day was wondering how these players would pan out in the future. Well guys, the day has come. It's been over 11 years. So what happened to these players and where are they now? We've been working on this video for over 2 weeks, and let me tell you, this draft may surprise you. Is the 2012 draft an underrated draft that we forget about?
The New Orleans Hornets select Anthony Davis.
A two-way star at Kentucky, Davis led his Wildcats to a national championship thanks to a combination of post moves, shot blocking, and shooting. It was obvious to everyone that this kid was going to be a star. After he declared for the draft, New Orleans jumped on the chance to take Davis with the first pick. Before ever suiting up as a pro, he became the first American since Emeka Okafor to play Olympic basketball with no NBA experience. In London, AD would bring home his first and only gold medal. Once he got back to the States, Davis would spend the first 7 years of his career in the Big Easy, racking up plenty of personal success, but only making the playoffs twice. After years of losing, Davis requested a trade in 2019 and was shipped to the Lakers for a massive haul including Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks. The move paid off for Los Angeles immediately. AD proved to be the perfect co-star alongside LeBron, and the Lakers dominated the regular season with a 52-19 record. Although the pandemic put a halt to the regular season, LA had no problem picking up where they left off. Davis and the Lakers dominated everyone in the postseason, including a game winner over Nikola Jokic in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals.
He puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers!
And then LA defeated the Heat in 6 games, giving Davis his first NBA title. While injuries in recent years have kept Anthony on the bench more than anyone would like, he's still one of the best players in the world. An 8-time All-Star and an NBA 75th team member, he's definitely earned his place as a future Hall of Famer. Do you guys think he's one of the best players in this draft class? I mean, I know it's a little premature to ask this question seeing he's the first pick, but I mean, let me know in the comments what you think.
The Charlotte Bobcats select Michael Kidd-Gilchrist of the University of Kentucky and Somerdale, New Jersey.
AD wasn't the only Wildcat taken early in the draft. In fact, Kentucky actually had 6 players taken in the 2012 NBA draft, setting an NBA record for a single school. Scouts believe Michael Kidd-Gilchrist's 7-foot wingspan would make him one of the game's best perimeter defenders. His leadership and hustle were also a plus. Well, there was just one problem. That man could not shoot. While Charlotte may have believed that they could fix MKG's goofy-looking jumper, he never developed a reliable outside shot. His defense was good, never great, and a series of injuries limited his athleticism. Kidd-Gilchrist was cut by the Hornets in 2020. Other than a brief stint with the Mavs later that season, he hasn't played in an NBA game since. While Michael is 30, his pro career appears to be over, due to a heart condition he suffered after getting COVID. Today, Kidd-Gilchrist currently advocates for those like himself who struggle with stutters, touring the country to raise awareness for those suffering from stuttering, with his nonprofit called Change and Impact.
The Washington Wizards select Bradley Beal from the University of Florida.
The second All-Star and third straight freshman from this draft. It was clear that Beal was a bucket getter when he took his Florida Gators to the Elite 8. With the kind of shooting ability coaches dream of, Beal had obvious potential. So the Wizards took him 3rd overall as the Robin to John Wall's Batman in DC. Beal's true breakout came in 2016, where he averaged over 20 points per game for the first time in his career, while helping the Wizards reach the Eastern Conference semis. With a young star-studded backcourt, you'd have thought Washington would have been a contender for years to come. But that wasn't the case. Wall's career quickly spiraled due to injuries, and the Wizards were never able to recover. Despite the rest of the franchise regressing, Beal became one of the game's top scorers, including a stretch where he averaged 31 points per game. Still, individual stats weren't enough to make Washington any more than a borderline playoff team. Headed into the 2023 season, Beal and the Wizards front office decided to mutually part ways, trading him to the Suns for Chris Paul and a handful of draft picks. Beal's time in Phoenix is off to a rocky start, as injuries have prevented him from staying on the court for more than a few games. But I want to hear from you guys. Is Bradley Beal a good fit for the Suns?
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Dion Waiters of Syracuse University.
I mean this when I say it. Few players have had as crazy of a career as Dion Waiters. Despite coming off the bench at Syracuse, Dion made a name for himself due to his spark plug scoring ability and overwhelming, almost irrational confidence. He He was a projected lottery pick heading into the draft, but the Cavs shocked the basketball world and took Waiters fourth. While Dion had some incredible moments in Cleveland, it was clear that he wasn't a fit in the same backcourt as Kyrie Irving. The two never got along, and since both needed the ball in their hands, it was clear the organization would have to choose between them. And that's not much of a decision when you have Uncle Drew. In 2015, the Cavs traded Waiters to Oklahoma City as part of a 3-team deal with the Knicks that got them J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. With the Thunder, Dion's ball-dominant style of play just didn't mesh with KD and Russ. Waiters struggled with his decision-making on and off the court during his career, and that's simply being kind. He ran into all kinds of issues once he joined the Heat, but to break it down simply, he had 3 suspensions in 3 months. In 2019, Waiters was suspended for a game after arguing with Eric Spoelstra on the bench. Less than a month later, Miami suspended Waiters 10 games after he suffered a panic attack after eating a THC gummy on the team's plane. To finish the year in style, Waiters called in sick in December and missed that night's game, only to post a picture of himself on a boat the same day. He was suspended 6 games by the team. Waiters would only play 3 games for the Heat that season, but he did end the year with the champion Lakers, appearing in 7 games. Well, it seems like poor decisions have kept Waiters out of the league, but it seems like he's making an effort to improve his behavior to get back on the NBA court. Maybe someone will give him another chance, but who knows?
The Sacramento Kings select Thomas Robinson from the University of Kansas.
A star out of Kansas, Robinson erupted as a junior, winning Big 12 Player of the Year and leading the Jayhawks to the national championship game. Although he wasn't an athletic freak or an elite shooter, Robinson was viewed as a winning player, a decent rebounder, and a natural leader. The reality was that Robinson couldn't stretch the floor, and he wasn't big enough to play center. That doesn't sound like a recipe for success. Robinson played on an insane amount of teams during his career, both in America and abroad. After struggling in a Sacramento offense dominated by DeMarcus Cousins, Robinson was traded during his rookie season to the Rockets. Houston then traded him to Portland, where he played a year and a half until the 76ers acquired him in 2015. Robinson was a bench player for the Nets and Lakers before going overseas. He signed contracts with professional clubs in Russia, China, Turkey, Puerto Rico, South Korea, and the Philippines.
The Portland Trailblazers select Damian Lillard of Weber State University.
It might not be a draft slide, but it's crazy to think that anyone other than AD was taken before Dame. Dame has been all over the news, but for my casual NBA fans, here's what happened. He played with Portland for a long time, never had a great team around him. So after several years, Portland decided to start rebuilding, which meant sending Dame to Milwaukee so they could get young players back. And so Dame could have a title chance. Very long story shortened. But with 6 All-Stars taken over 2 rounds, this draft had plenty of talent outside of Dame. However, only 9 players are still on NBA rosters as of 2023. But outside of the big 3 so far, how did the others fare? Does it still have the chance to be an underrated draft class?
The Golden State Warriors select Harrison Barnes from the University of North Carolina.
A 5-star recruit from Iowa, Barnes was a beast at North Carolina. He was taken 7th by a rebuilding Warriors team looking for positionless defenders to pair with the Splash Brothers. It's no coincidence that Barnes' rookie year saw Golden State double their win total and make the playoffs. Barnes was huge for the Warriors during their 2015 championship run, even if he was the 4th option. After another finals appearance in 2016, you would have thought the 24-year-old Barnes would be a Warrior for life. Well, that was actually the plan, until Kevin Durant came to the Bay. Without the cash to keep Barnes in free agency, Golden State didn't match an offer from the Mavs, and so he was bound for Dallas. While he was leaving a winning team in the NBA, Barnes wasn't done winning titles elsewhere. He was a member of Team USA for the 2016 Olympics in Rio, bringing home a gold medal. When he returned to Dallas, Barnes would put up plenty of buckets on some bad Mavs teams before being traded to Sacramento in 2019. He's been a king ever since, going from lead scorer to role player on an up-and-coming team. Off the court, he's doing a lot too, from being a family man and a philanthropist all the way to running his investment firm, Barnes & Co.
The Toronto Raptors select Terrence Ross from the University of Washington.
When we talk about microwave scorers, Terrence Ross is a name that comes to mind. The high-flying shot maker out of Washington made sense for a Raptors franchise desperate for some energy on offense. Ross earned some hype as a rookie after winning the slam dunk contest, but minutes were tough to come by with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan on the same team. Looking to make a change after some rough playoff losses, Ross was traded to the Magic in 2017 as a part of a package for Serge Ibaka. In Orlando, Ross still came off the bench, but he was finally given more responsibility, becoming a go-to guy on some mid-teams. After 7 seasons, he was bought out by the Magic and signed with the Suns, where he was a solid contributor off the bench. Surprisingly, Ross is not on any roster now. but he was offered a contract by a Serbian team. It wouldn't shock me if a desperate NBA team gave the Human Torch a call. Well guys, I may have lied. Right after I made this video, Terrence Ross announced that he was retiring, so I had to come back and update you guys. And this interview right here will explain it all.
Yeah, I think I'm done, bro. I think
That's it.
I got all the basketball out of me.
The Detroit Pistons select Andre Drummond from the University of Connecticut.
Andre Drummond wasted no time becoming one of the game's best rebounders, averaging nearly 8 boards on just 20 minutes per game as a rookie. Once his role grew, Andre became a walking double-double. While the Pistons were never able to build a consistent winner, that didn't stop him from grabbing 2 All-Star selections and 4 rebounding titles in Detroit. While Drummond's skills on the boards were unmatched, he's undoubtedly one of the worst free throw shooters in NBA history. We're not talking just bad. This dude was absolutely atrocious at the charity stripe. Among players with 1,200 career free throw misses, Drummond was the 3rd worst percentage ever, sitting at just under 48%. In a game against the Rockets in 2014, he set an NBA record with 23 missed free throws in a game. 23 misses. How? The opinion on Drummond among Pistons fans was mixed. Inconsistent plays and moments of immaturity, including pouting on the bench, led to some fans turning on him. During the 2019 postseason, fans even booed Drummond due to a lack of effort. It was clear to everyone that both Andre and the Pistons needed to move on. With the franchise headed nowhere, Detroit traded Drummond to the Cavs, who would release him the following year. From there, Andre would bounce around the association, playing with the Lakers, Sixers, and Nets before landing with his current team, the Bulls. Don't get it twisted though, as he sometimes comes off as goofy with what he does on the court. Goofy is not at all what he does off the court. From his philanthropy to being a Special Olympics ambassador, all the way to the multiple businesses he runs, and being a Fashion Nova influencer, which it seems like everyone's doing nowadays, Andre is like a modern day business renaissance man, and it looks like he's successfully dabbled in everything that he's tried so far.
The New Orleans Hornets select Austin Rivers from Duke University.
Austin Rivers entered the NBA with plenty of hype, and it wasn't just because of his dad. A star at Duke and a crazy game winner against North Carolina made him one of college basketball's biggest names. Still, Austin was a streaky shooter at Duke, and it showed in the NCAA tournament, when he shot 5 of 14 from the field in an embarrassing loss to Lehigh in the round of 64. Rivers declared for the NBA draft 10 days later, but many thought he should have stayed in school. Rivers didn't get off to a good start after being taken 10th by the New Orleans Pelicans. He shot an awful 37% from the field before breaking his hand in March and missing the rest of the regular season. Things didn't improve for him with the Pels, and it was clear the team was looking to move on when they didn't pick up his 4th-year player option before the 2014 season. Rivers was sent to Boston as part of a 3-team trade in February, only to get dealt 3 days later to the Clippers. The move meant Austin would finally be the first son to play for his father in NBA history. Austin remained a role player, but he played his best basketball in LA. As a Clipper, he averaged 11 points per game on a respectable 43% from the field, a major improvement from New Orleans. During his first season with the club, he went off for 25 points in the Western Conference semis against the Rockets. Austin eventually left the team in 2018, bouncing around several squads across the league as a bench player. His lack of improvement, especially as a shooter, prevented him from ever becoming a starter. While he was never able to really deliver on his potential, I'm grateful that Austin gave us one last great moment on the court. Last season, while with the Timberwolves, he got into it with Mo Bamba. The two came to blows, and according to Austin, it was due to language from the bench. Bamba and Rivers then took shots at each other on Instagram following the game, with Austin telling Mo that, "Hey, we only know you from that old rap song." While not on an NBA roster right now, Austin remains involved in the game. He currently hosts his own podcast, Off Guard with Austin Rivers, and has a pretty sick car collection that he showcases on Instagram.
The Portland Trailblazers select Myers Leonard from the University of Illinois.
The history of the Portland Trailblazers is filled with big men that just didn't pan out. I mean, just look at all these players. Unfortunately, selecting Myers Leonard at pick 11 didn't change their luck. I mean, Leonard never even really reached the heights people expected when he was in college. On paper, a 7-foot big man that could shoot makes a whole lot of sense to pair with Damian Lillard. Leonard just never put it all together, and his struggles on the defensive end, along with constant injuries, prevented him from getting consistent minutes. The Blazers still saw something in Myers, extending him with a 4-year, $41 million deal in 2016. Almost immediately, the move was a mistake. After getting the bag, Leonard averaged 5 points on just over 14 minutes a game before the Blazers traded him to Miami in 2019. While with the Heat, he continued to suffer from health difficulties. missing most of the 2021 season due to a shoulder injury. And later that year, Leonard made the wrong kind of headlines due to his use of an anti-Semitic slur while playing a video game on Twitch. A week later, the Heat traded Myers to the Thunder, who immediately released him. It might have been easy to block out everyone, but Leonard was making a real effort to make up for his action. He reached out to local rabbis and sat down with the Anti-Defamation League, helped out at basketball camps within Miami's Jewish community, and even visited the Holocaust Memorial in Washington, D.C. By all accounts, it appears that he's taken this incident to better himself and support the Jewish community. Many, and I mean many, figured Leonard's playing days were behind him, but the Bucks did give the veteran a contract last March. He appeared in 9 games with Milwaukee, but currently he's out of the league, but he's definitely making it up with family time.
The Houston Rockets select Jeremy Lamb from the University of Connecticut.
Everyone remembers Kemba Walker's insane run with UConn in 2011, but the guy had some help. Jeremy Lamb was an NBA-ready shooter with the Huskies, averaging 11 points as a freshman at 49% from the field. After a sophomore year that saw him jump his scoring to 17 a game, Lamb declared for the draft. While the Rockets intended to keep Lamb, he was dealt right before the start of the season as part of the James Harden trade with the Thunder. He never really found a role in OKC, going back and forth between the club and the D-League. He did have his moments though, including a double-double against the Pistons in 2014, but Lamb was eventually dealt to the Hornets for Luke Ridnour and a second-round pick. In Charlotte, Lamb finally started to show that he could be an NBA contributor. Over 4 seasons, he saw his minutes and numbers increase, going from below 9 points a game to over 15 in 2019. Lamb used his improved play to ink a 3-year, $31 million deal with the Pacers. But injuries and a diminished role prevented him from building on his success. He was traded once again in 2022 to Sacramento as part of the Tyrese Halliburton and Domantas Sabonis deal. This preseason, the team waived Lamb and signed him to their G League squad in Stockton, where he is currently playing now.
The Phoenix Suns select Kendall Marshall from the University of North Carolina.
Kendall Marshall had a reputation as one of the nation's savviest passers during his time in North Carolina. He averaged nearly 10 assists per game as a sophomore, becoming the 3rd Tar Heel to ever win the Bob Cousy Award for college basketball's best point guard. Still, there were plenty of people who weren't convinced that he could ever be a true threat on offense, as his ball distribution wasn't enough to make up for a lack of shooting and athleticism. And those people turned out to be right. Marshall was never a great fit for the Suns team that already had Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe, so the team traded him to the Wizards before the 2013 season, and they cut him right after. Eventually, Marshall signed a contract with a terrible Lakers team that had lost Kobe Bryant for the season. K. Butta did have some memorable moments with the purple and gold, but he was cut that offseason by LA, going on to play 3 more seasons with the Bucks and 76ers. After 2 seasons in the G League, Marshall announced his retirement from basketball in 2017. It just seemed like his skill wasn't suited for the modern NBA, and it was hard to envision him ever contributing to a winning team. Marshall went back to UNC to complete his degree, and was later hired to the Heels coaching staff in 2018. Head coach Roy Williams appointed Marshall as North Carolina's director of recruiting in 2019, a position he would hold until Williams retired in 2021.
The Milwaukee Bucks select John Henson from the University of North Carolina.
1 year before Milwaukee would hit the jackpot on a lanky defensive-first prospect, they took UNC's John Henson with the 14th pick. Henson came into the draft as a project. With a 6'11 frame and outstanding defensive skills, he could step in right away as a quality rim protector, but his offensive game was lacking. Henson was never bad enough to be benched, but it was impossible for coaches to trust him with big minutes. However, that doesn't mean he didn't have some monster games. Near the end of his rookie year, Henson put the entire league on notice with a 17-point, 25-rebound, 7-block masterclass against the Magic. He followed that up a week later with 28 points in a win over the Thunder. Still, Henson was never able to do much other than swat shots, but he did do that extremely well. Although he averaged 20 minutes over 4 seasons with the Bucks, John averaged 1.5 blocks per game. Had he played even 5 more minutes a game, it's not crazy to think he could have put up 2 rejections a night every season. Milwaukee saw enough potential to sign Henson to a 4-year extension in 2015, but he never took the next step. When it appeared like John was on his way to starting consistently, he missed 12 weeks with a wrist injury. From there, he played 1 more season with the Cavs and Pistons before landing in Puerto Rico in 2022. Post-playing career, John has stayed active with basketball, appearing on broadcast television and podcasts to talk about college hoops and sports betting.
The Philadelphia 76ers select Maurice Harkless from St. John's University.
The Queens native, Mo Harkless lit it up in 1 season at St. John's. Playing for his hometown team, he put up over 15 points, 8.6 boards, and a combined 3 blocks and steals per game. After his freshman season, Mo declared for the draft. getting picked up by the 76ers with the 15th pick. A month later, he was shipped to the Magic as a piece in the 4-team Dwight Howard blockbuster trade. Mo was never a star, but he spent 10 years in the NBA as a reliable role player, helping just about every team he was on. Still, he never really improved much as a player, and the team eventually traded him to the Blazers. Mo saw his minutes rise in Portland, eventually earning a starting spot on the playoff team. During the 2016 postseason, he averaged an impressive 11 points to go along with 5 rebounds per game. That summer, Harkless re-signed with the Blazers, but as the years went on, his time as a starter came to an end. As a piece in the Jimmy Butler sign and trade, Mo was sent to the Clippers, where he would play 50 games before getting dealt to the Knicks as part of a deal for Marcus Morris. He'd played 2 more seasons for the Heat and Kings, although he was then traded to the Hawks, Thunder, and Rockets during the 2022 offseason before getting waived. Something interesting about Harkless is his hobby for collecting art, a passion he says started when he was in college and progressed even further during the 2020 lockdown. It's cool to see much of Mo's personality and his off-court passion, as his purchases are pieces that connect with him rather than investments. Nowadays, as of very recently, he's playing with the Rip City Remix in the G League, and maybe he can make an NBA comeback.
The Houston Rockets select Royce White of Iowa State University.
Royce White was an enigma. The talent was obvious, but legal issues while he was a freshman at Minnesota, along with difficulties over his anxiety and fear of flying, made him a risky pick. After drafting him 16th, it seemed like White's relationship with Houston was off to a good start, as the team allowed him to use a personal bus to travel to road games. Things quickly went off the rails. A disagreement with the Rockets led Royce to skipping team practices and games. As he said, the front office didn't support his mental health. He was assigned to Houston's D-League affiliate, the Rio Grande Vipers, but White refused the assignment the next day. Eventually, after a team-enforced suspension, Royce did suit up for Rio Grande, but he quit playing for the team in March. It would take White 2 years to play in the NBA, during which time he was traded to Philly, released, and signed with the Kings in 2014. Between March 21st and March 26th, he would play in 3 games for Sacramento, failing to do anything but foul and miss a few shots. His 10-day contract wasn't renewed, and White was out of the NBA for good. Royce did have some basketball success up north, where he was named the National Basketball League of Canada's MVP, while with the London Lightning in 2017. It was short-lived, as an outburst at an official and the league's deputy commissioner led to an 11-game suspension and White's exit from the league. Royce then signed a contract to play in Italy, but it was voided when he failed to report to training camp. A brief career in mixed martial arts ended with Royce losing his first fight via unanimous decision. Royce shifted his focus to politics last year though, announcing his campaign as a Republican running for the House of Representatives in Minnesota's 5th District. While he did lose in the Republican primary that year, he still remains involved in politics, promoting some questionable views on topics ranging from COVID to the 2020 election. Royce announced in August that he would be running for the US Senate in 2024.
The Dallas Mavericks select Tyler Zeller.
A 4th-year player at North Carolina, Zeller was considered one of the best bigs in college before entering the draft, but he wasn't seen as much more than a role player at the next level. Those projections turned out to be pretty accurate. The Mavs took Zeller with the 17th pick, only to trade him to the Cavaliers on draft night. He played 2 solid seasons as a part-time starter in Cleveland before he was traded to Boston in 2014, as part of a 3-team deal with the Nets. While Zeller's first year in Beantown saw him put up 10.2 points per game, that number would eventually shrink 2 years later as the Celtics began to favor Kelly Olynyk. After being waived by Boston in 2017, Zeller played for the Nets, Bucks, Hawks, Grizzlies, and Spurs over the next 3 years, failing to do much on any team. Tyler is currently out of the league, but at least little bro Cody is still going strong heading into his 10th season.
The Houston Rockets select Terrence Jones from the University of Kentucky.
Jones balled out of Kentucky as a sophomore, drawing him plenty of buzz due to his high motor and versatility. While the Rockets did use the 18th pick on him, he spent most of his rookie year in the D-League. He'd earned a starting spot in year 2 and scored 12 points per night to go with 6.9 rebounds. He even made history in January, becoming the youngest Rocket since Hakeem to score 30 points. Sadly for Jones, that would be his peak. A bunch of injuries kept him sidelined for much of the next 2 seasons, including a scary incident in 2016 when he crashed into a car. That offseason, Jones signed with the Pels, but he was waived in March after they traded for DeMarcus Cousins. After a 3-game stint with the Bucks later that season, Jones was waived once again. From there, he inked a deal in China with the Double Star Eagles, but he was released by the club 3 months later due to an incident in practice with the team's coach. Jones played a few years in the G League before making a return to Houston, playing in a couple of games for the Rockets on a 10-day contract. In 2019, he signed with the then TNT Catropa of the Filipino League, whose team name in 2020 changed to TNT Tropan Giga. I think I said that right. While his play on the court for Catropa was nothing short of dominant, Jones did get into an incident in June. A low blow from Terrence to Calvin Abueva in the first quarter and some dancing afterwards led to a full-blown brawl later in that game. Jones still led his team to the title that season, so I guess it ended well. Afterwards, he'd play a few seasons in Puerto Rico, the G League, and Taiwan before returning back to Puerto Rico, where he currently plays for Leones de Ponce.
The Orlando Magic select Andrew Nicholson from Mississauga, Canada, and St. Bonaventure University.
A 4-year starter at St. Bonaventure, Andrew Nicholson began to draw some buzz after winning the Atlantic 10 Player of the Year award as a senior. However, Nicholson's strength in college never translated to the NBA. After the Magic took him with the 19th pick, he'd spend the 4 seasons on the bench as an undersized big backing up Nikola Vucevic. Nicholson signed a 4-year, $26 million deal with the Wizards in 2016, but he was traded the following year to the Nets. Brooklyn then sent the Canadian to Portland, but he was cut a month later. After being released, Nicholson spent the next 4 years playing in China, including a stint with the Guangdong Tigers. While Nicholson has had a quiet post-NBA life, he is brought back into the spotlight by none other than Draymond Green. On Paul George's podcast this summer, Dre named Nicholson the most ridiculous player drafted ahead of him in 2012. And Nicholson didn't stay silent. In an interview with the Hip Hop Hoops podcast, he said that Green's comments came off as an insecurity on his end. In a league known for random beefs, this one might take the cake.
The Denver Nuggets select Evan Fournier.
He's never been an all-star, but Evan Fournier is a solid addition to this draft class. Considered the best foreign prospect that year, Fournier's calling card was his shooting, but he also showed some driving ability. The Nuggets selected the Frenchman with the 20th overall pick, but Evan wouldn't reach his potential until being traded to Orlando for Aaron Aflalo 2 years later. Fournier became one of the Magic's go-to scorers, and by the age of 25, he was putting up nearly 18 points a night. After a 7-year run, the tanking Magic shipped Fournier to Boston in 2021. Being traded to a contender mid-season gave Evan his first real chance to compete for a title, but it also meant he had to accept a reduced role. While he didn't have an amazing regular season with the Celtics, he showed up in the playoffs. But it wasn't enough to help Boston avoid a gentleman's sweep against the Nets. Fournier reminded everyone of just how good he can be during an insane run at the Tokyo Olympics. While playing for the French national team, Evan led his country to a silver medal, dropping 28 points against the United States along the way. When he came back to the States, Fournier agreed to a 3-year deal with the Knicks. While he's had some moments in New York, including setting the franchise record for threes in a season, he's struggled on defense. While that could fly with some coaches, it won't with Tibbs. Despite talk of a trade, New York has yet to find a new home for Fournier, who's compared his situation to being held hostage. It's hard to believe Evan's career is over, considering he's only 31, but he's played in only 1 game for the Knicks this whole season.
The Boston Celtics select Jared Sullinger from Ohio State University.
Jared Sullinger was an absolute beast at Ohio State, leading the Buckeyes to the Final Four as a sophomore. He got drafted into an ideal situation with the Celtics, and he had success rather quickly. So why was he out of the league in 5 years? With plenty of hype, it was a shock to many that Sully fell to pick 21 due to concerns over his lower back and lack of athleticism. His bruising playstyle immediately won over Celtics fans who saw him as a possible successor to KG. In 2014, Jared put an injury-shortened rookie season behind him and flashed his potential, scoring 13.3 points a game to go along with 8.1 rebounds. Perhaps the best game of his career came that year, when he put up 25 points and 20 boards against the Raptors, becoming the first Celtic with a 20-20 game since Garnett in 2007. And that proved to be the peak of his career. Constant injuries, defensive shortcomings, and struggles with weight ultimately prevented Jared from developing. He signed a 1-year prove-it deal with the Raptors in 2016, but a foot injury forced him out of action for half the season. Toronto traded Sully to the Suns that season in exchange for PJ Tucker, only for Phoenix to release him the next day. Months after being released, he signed a contract with the Shenzhen Aviators of the Chinese Basketball Association, where he dominated. Sullinger averaged 30 points and 16 rebounds in his first season overseas, including a monster 40-point and 30-rebound game. He resigned with Shenzhen in 2018, but injuries and COVID put a halt to his career in 2021, when he signed with Anyang SGC in South Korea, who he led to a championship. In December of 2021, Sullinger returned to Shenzhen, this time featuring the kind of ball handling and quickness he lacked in America. Could Sully make a return to the NBA? It's unlikely, but I'm rooting for him. Which players from this draft class do you guys want to see back in the league?
The Boston Celtics select Fab Melo.
Fab Melo was the key piece on a dominant Syracuse team, earning the Big East Defensive Player of the Year in 2012. The Brazilian carried the momentum to the draft, where he was taken by the Celtics with the 22nd pick. Considered extremely raw, Melo only played 6 games in Boston, spending most of his rookie season in the D-League. He was never really able to develop the quickness and offensive game needed for most NBA centers. In 2013, Melo was traded to the Grizzlies, but was waived 2 weeks later. He was then signed again by the Mavs, who also went on to release him. Fab would never play in the US again, signing contracts with teams in Brazil and Puerto Rico through 2016. But tragically, Melo passed away in 2017, only at the age of 26 due to a heart attack. Rest in peace, Fab.
The Atlanta Hawks select John Jenkins from Vanderbilt University.
John Jenkins was absolutely lethal during his 3 years at Vanderbilt, shooting an absurd 44% from 3. Still, with less than ideal NBA size and nothing much to offer but shooting, it was a bit of a surprise when the Hawks took him 23rd. He'd spend most of his 3 years in the league bouncing between Atlanta and their D-League team in Bakersfield. An injury that caused Jenkins to miss most of his second season certainly didn't help. John never really caught on with any other team, playing a few games for the Mavs, Suns, Wizards, and Knicks through 2019. Jenkins took a brief break from the NBA in 2017 to sign in Spain. Since then, he's played for teams in China, Israel, and France. And currently, John is actually rostered on the G League Ignite.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Jared Cunningham from Oregon State University.
In a league that was seeing a new wave of super athletic point guards, Jared Cunningham seemed to fit the mold. This guy had bounce.
As well. Here comes Cunningham. Inside. He threw it down.
At Oregon State, he also flashed solid defensive potential with more than 2 steals per game over 3 years. Unfortunately, his offensive game never panned out, and he struggled to carve out a role for himself. Traded to the Mavs on draft night as part of a deal that sent Tyler Zeller to Cleveland, Jared jumped back and forth between Dallas and the D-League. He played 3 more seasons in the NBA, spending time on the Hawks, Kings, Clippers, Cavs, and Bucks. Since then, Jared has split time between the G League and playing abroad, balling in China, Germany, Italy, Israel, Lithuania, and Serbia. One of the teams he suited up for? None other than the Shanghai Sharks. Something to know about Cunningham is that he's a massive sneakerhead, with a literal walk-in closet of LeBrons and Jordans that even got the Kings' attention. Yeah, keep collecting those kicks, Jared.
The Memphis Grizzlies select Tony Roten Jr. from the University of Washington.
You can't teach athleticism, but you can teach shooting. And that was probably what the Grizzlies were thinking when they picked up Tony Roten at pick 25. With the ideal size at 6'5", Roten looked like a guard of the future, and his highlight reel at Washington backed it up. While Tony's rookie year saw him barely play in Memphis, a trade that summer to the 76ers gave him plenty of minutes. A terrible process-era squad needed all the playmaking they could get, allowing Tony to put up 14.2 points per game during his first 2 years in Philly. That number is a bit misleading though, because his jumper was still pretty bad. Roten shot 41% from the field and 23% from beyond the arc over 3 seasons with the Sixers. Maybe his shoes were holding him back. In 2015, Tony tore his ACL and was eventually waived by Philadelphia. From there, he'd actually played with multiple G League teams before signing contracts in Estonia, Poland, Spain, Egypt, and Greece. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, Roten's story has a disappointing ending. In 2021, he was one of 18 former players indicted in federal court over a nearly $4 million health insurance scam. After pleading guilty, Roten and 6 other players managed to avoid prison time, mainly because they didn't recruit anyone else. I remember you guys saying you wanted me to do a video covering what happened to the players in the scandal, and if you still want it, let me know below.
The Indiana Pacers select Miles Plumlee from Duke University.
Before Mason and Marshall entered the league, there was Miles. A national champion at Duke, Plumlee had more hops than you might think.
Off to Plumlee!
He led all players at the combine with a vertical of over 40 inches. It was difficult to get too hyped for a senior that averaged under 5 points in college, but Miles offered rebounding and hustle. And that's why the defensive first Pacers snagged him at pick 26. Still, it was tough for Plumlee to break into Indy's rotation, and he spent most of the year with the Fort Wayne Mad Ants in the D-League. In July, he and Gerald Green were traded to the Suns for Luis Scola. With a chance to start every game, Plumlee delivered. He put up over 8 points and 7.8 rebounds a game in Phoenix and made the Rising Stars roster. His time with the Suns was short-lived. The following year, he was sent to the Bucks as part of a 3-team trade with the Sixers. Plumlee would play another year in Milwaukee, putting up less than 5 points a game. And you'd think that he would be pretty replaceable. but clearly the Bucks had different ideas. While it wasn't as crazy as giving Timothy Mozgov or Luol Deng the bag, Plumlee's 4-year, $52 million contract stands out during that insane summer of 2016, and the deal proved to be an overpay. After half the season of nothing really, Miles was shipped to Charlotte. From there, he played 2 more seasons for the Hawks, before heading to China in 2019 with the Lions. The following year, Plumlee was a champ once again, this time with the Perth Wildcats of the Australian Basketball League.
The NBA champion Miami Heat select Arnett Moultrie from Mississippi State University.
Arnett Moultrie proved he could be a scorer with the best of them at Mississippi State, but there were questions about his defense and effort. A 76ers team starving for scoring was willing to overlook those concerns, trading for Moultrie's draft rights from the Heat at pick 26. Arnett was never able to make a lasting impact in Philly, spending most of his only 2 years with the team in the D-League. A 5-game suspension for smoking weed back in 2014 when the league still tested for it certainly didn't help Moultrie. His second and final season with the 76ers would be his last in the NBA. That doesn't mean he was done with basketball. Moultrie would spend time in China, Lebanon, the Philippines, Estonia, and Taiwan, and many other countries where he still plays today.
The Oklahoma City Thunder select Perry Jones III from Baylor University.
We hear a lot about young players that need a winning culture, but what about the opposite? Are there some players that would have thrived if they were given the opportunity on a rebuilding team? Well, look no further than Perry Jones. It's still shocking that the man KD called the best athlete in the NBA was out of the league in 3 years. So what happened? A can't-miss recruit out of high school, Jones was a 2-year starter at Baylor. After leading the Bears to the Elite 8, Perry declared for the draft. At 6'11", with an explosive inside-out game, Jones was seen as a lock to go in the lottery, but health concerns over his knee led to a major slide. The Thunder, the defending Western Conference champions, could afford to take a risk, and they pounced at pick 28. Jones was added to an incredibly deep roster, which meant plenty of trips to the D-League as a rookie. When Perry did have a roster spot in OKC, he had to play behind Durant and Serge Ibaka. In 2014, Perry finally got to show what he could do. The Thunder were suddenly desperate. Durant and Westbrook, now injured, were months away from returning to the court. In their absence, PJ took off. After an awful 3-point performance to start the season, he put up 32 points on the Clippers and 20 on the Nuggets, leading OKC to a win. His success was short-lived. With the return of Jeremy Lamb, remember him, forced Perry back to the bench. He was traded to the Celtics that summer, who then waived him in the preseason. Since then, he spent time in Russia, the D-League, Turkey, Germany, and Taiwan. And actually even the Big Three, where he was the youngest player in league history. I mean, it's kinda hard not to wonder what if when it comes to Perry Jones. On another team, he could have at least been a starter. I mean, you guys let me know. Are there any other players that were stuck on the wrong roster at the wrong time that could have been stars or role players elsewhere?
The Chicago Bulls select Marcus Teague from the University of Kentucky.
Jeff Teague's little bro had some game at Kentucky, playing a big role as a freshman for the national champs. He seemed like the perfect fit at pick 29 for a Bulls team looking for a backup for Derrick Rose. Teams knew it would take some time for the 19-year-old, but why not take a chance on a former 5-star? It didn't take long for Chicago to realize it wasn't going to work out. Marquise never really seemed to excel at anything in the NBA, and he struggled with turnovers and really couldn't shoot. Honestly, struggle is a bit too kind. Marquise shot 33% from the field over 67 games with the Bulls before being traded to the Nets. If that isn't a sign things aren't working out, I don't know what is. To make matters worse, he got absolutely cooked by none other than Big Brother Jeff. Just nasty work. After finishing the season in Brooklyn, Marquise would spend the next 3 years in the D-League, Israel, and Russia. He made a comeback with the Grizzlies in 2018, but only for 3 games. Since then, he's balled in Korea, England, and Greece. Keep it up, man.
The Golden State Warriors select Festus Ezeli from Benin City, Nigeria, and Vanderbilt University.
We end the first round with none other than the Dubs legend himself, Festus Ezeli. While he became known for his injuries, especially after a deal with the Blazers, the Nigerian came from humble origins and developed into a solid role player. One of 5 children, Festus's parents sent him to live with his uncle in California when he was 14. He knew basically nothing about basketball, even scoring his first points in his own team's basket. Eventually, as Ezeli grew into his 6'11" frame, he learned the game. Recruiters from Vanderbilt took notice, and Festus went on to play 4 years with the Commodores. He slowly grew into a shot-blocking menace, drawing the attention of NBA scouts. The Warriors had a need for center depth with the injury-prone Andrew Bogut, so they took Ezeli close to the first round. Festus never turned into a star, but he knew his role and helped Golden State to a title in 2015, becoming the second Nigerian champion after Hakeem. Sadly, injuries held him back. Surgery on Ezeli's right knee prevented him from playing the entire 2014 season. He inked a 2-year deal with the Blazers, but he'd never appear in a single game for Portland. Constant knee troubles kept Ezeli out of 2 straight seasons before he was waived in 2017. Although his career was cut short, Ezeli has stayed busy. He's currently an analyst for NBC Sports Bay Area, as well as an ambassador to NBA Africa. 15 years after leaving Nigeria, Ezeli even returned home to set up a basketball camp. I mean, the man is a true inspiration, and it's awesome to see him inspiring the next generation. But before we wrap things up, I've got to take a look at a few diamonds in the rough from the second round.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Jay Crowder from Marquette University.
Before declaring for the draft, Jay Crowder was the Big East Player of the Year at Marquette. That didn't get him taken in the first round, as Jay was your classic jack of all trades. Not bad at anything, but not great at anything either. After a draft day trade, Crowder landed in Dallas, where he would immediately make an impact in the summer league and the preseason, with some actually calling him the steal of the draft. After 2 years as a 3-and-D hustle guy, he was traded to the Celtics in 2014 as part of a package for Rajon Rondo. On an up-and-coming Boston squad, Jay finally showed what he could do. Thriving with a larger role in the offense, he was still traded for another superstar in 2017. This time as part of the Kyrie Isaiah Thomas swap. Crowder has been a journeyman ever since, bouncing around the league with the Cavs, Jazz, Grizzlies, Heat, and Suns. A messy dispute in Phoenix that saw Jay away from the team for most of the year led to a move to the Bucks as part of the last season's KD trade. It hasn't been the best fit in Milwaukee so far, but that doesn't change what's been an awesome career for the second rounder.
The Golden State Warriors select Draymond Green from Michigan State University.
Oh boy, say what you will about him, but you can't call Draymond a choker. Well, I guess you could. Green, for all his chaos, is still one of the greatest defenders in league history, so why did he drop to pick 35? Dre was beloved during 4 years with Michigan State, with Tom Izzo calling him the perfect Spartan. But that wasn't enough for scouts, who worried that Green was undersized and, like Crowder, didn't excel at any aspect of the game. Talk about proving them wrong. Ever since landing in Golden State, Green has gone above and beyond to improve his game, becoming a Defensive Player of the Year, terrific passer, and capable 3-point shooter. His high intensity has been essential for the Dubs, but it's been proven difficult for him to turn off that switch at times. Even Draymond's biggest supporters can admit the dude is an all-time NBA villain, whether it's his famous suspension in the 2016 finals, several kicks to opposing players, or a punch to his own teammate. This man has a second career in the WWE when he decides to hang him up. But that doesn't take away from his on-court reputation as one of the greatest winners of this era, as he's won 4 titles with the Warriors. I mean, he'll remain hated for years to come, but Draymond has a great chance at Hall of Fame induction when it's all said and done.
The Detroit Pistons select Chris Middleton from Texas A&M University.
For some players, being called boring is actually a compliment. A 3-time All-Star and an NBA champion, there isn't a ton to say about Chris Middleton other than he can shoot the basketball. The Texas A&M sharpshooter fell to the Pistons in the second round due to his injury history and smaller size for a 6'7" player. Unlike some of his draft mates, Middleton wasn't an immediate success. He spent time in Detroit and in the D-League with the Fort Wayne Mad Ants, putting up 6 points per game before getting shipped off to Milwaukee in 2013. After that, everything came together. Chris doubled his scoring average and shot a ridiculous 41% from 3 in his first season with the Bucks. From there, he'd go on to make a name for himself as one of the league's most lethal weapons, serving as a steady number 2 to Giannis. Injuries have lingered throughout his career, but it's clear that Middleton has had one of the best careers of his draft class. While I'm not going to make a whole section of these guys, there's actually a lot more second rounders that had solid careers in the NBA. Kyle O'Quinn, Mike Scott, Will Barton, and Tomas Satoransky. I think 2012 will be one of those draft classes that we will look back at in years to come and realize just how many star and role players came from this draft, and maybe even put it up as one of the best drafts ever. This draft had some ballers, and a few busts. Overall, I'd say this wasn't a bust or an over success. I'd say it's actually right in the middle so far. We have great players, but not too many, and there were bad players too, but they didn't overtake the lottery picks. However, of all the big names, Lillard stands out among the rest. And now, with his new teammate Giannis, they're up next to take over the league. Speaking of Giannis, what happened to everyone in his draft? Well, don't worry, because I have all of that covered in this video showing right here.